And what I want to do today is to focus on two projects that Neon has been working on in the last few months, Talking Sense and Tsuru. So Talking Sense is an augmented reality training tool, and it uses Charisma AI technology. And by using dynamic machine learning conversation processes with an integrated dialogue engine, we're aiming to improve the learning outcome for parents who are learning to manage the behavior of their autistic children and to help parents develop better coping strategies. So autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, refers to a set of related conditions that affect social interaction, communication, and behavior. And the impact can range from mild to severe, but it mostly appears in early childhood and normally can social communication. People with ASD tend to have restricted interests, repetitive behavior, and a need for routine. And according to the British Medical Association, as of last month, there are 700,000 people in the UK who have a diagnosis of autism, and this affects 1 in every 100 children. So bringing up a child with autism, it can be really challenging for parents, especially when other people don't understand the issues. And children with ASD often experience the world differently from most people. They can have difficulty expressing themselves. Sensory issues can affect how they smell, hear, or see things. And they may find it impossible to eat foods of a particular color, for example. And a great concern for many parents is that some of their child's behaviors make it difficult for them to integrate fully as a member of their local community. So it's also important to understand, in terms of why we built this app, that parents of children with ASD have poorer mental health outcomes when compared to the general population. And not understanding why their child may engage in certain behaviors and feeling powerless to intervene can have a huge negative impact on parental well-being. So giving parents proactive strategies to actually help with their child's needs has been shown to have a huge positive mental health benefit for parents. So what happens in Talking Sense? Well, in the app, parents engage in a conversation with a character, Ben, who represents their child. Now, with this character, the parent can practice in real time, real life challenging behavior scenarios and strategies for supporting and understanding their child. And in real life, these situations are many and varied and reflect the full gamut of daily life. But the situation selected for Talking Sense, it's a routine evening scenario to facilitate that ease of transition from watching TV to transitioning to the bedroom successfully and with minimal upset. So in this scenario, the child is settling down to watch their favorite TV show. That is their main focus. However, the parents will be taught that their focus is to ensure that their messaging prepares their child for activity after the end of the TV show, so that they are ready to go to bed. Now, in day-to-day conversations, we tend to have 3 to 4 pathways that we follow. And generally, we know the endpoint that we want to get to. So in Talking Sense, we anticipate circuits of likely conversations and behaviors. And in this slide, you can see the ever-expanding web of interactions that proceeds in a linear manner. Essentially, it is a map for Talking Sense. So the key characters are Ben and the parent, and they have a conversation flow with response and counter-response. But then we also assign conditions for the conversation to proceed. So for example, the parent has to select their role as a parent, mom or dad. But since the focus is on the parent, we also have a trainer who acts as a guide for prompting and guiding a positive intervention, and also comments on the parent's progress if, for example, they've intervened too much. And by introducing wildcards, we can accommodate interventions that we have not anticipated. So overall, the aim is to try and replicate as natural a conversation flow in a particular scenario as possible. And finally, there's also the option to make observations in the comment box. So here you can see we've made a visual note for the animations. Now, in developing this scenario of talking sense, parents also learn that if they do not adequately prepare their child, then they may react in a manner that will be upsetting, not only for them, but for the parents too. So I just want to play you the video.
Welcome to Talking Sense. In this scenario, we will be exploring techniques on how to get your child to go to bed without a fuss. Before we start, can you say what role you would like to play in this scenario? Use the microphone button to speak or type mom or dad below.
Hi, Mom.
Your son's name is Ben and it's almost his bedtime, but you have agreed that he can watch his favorite TV show before he goes to bed. Think about what you might say to him before the show starts, during the show, and when the show ends to ease his transition to bed. Use the microphone button or type below to speak to Ben.
Hey, can I watch TV?
Well done. You gave Ben a prompt about what should happen after the TV show ends. This will help with the transition between watching television and going to bed.
Okay, got it, Mom.
Great, and there's no harm in giving Ben additional reminders to help prepare him for bedtime. Don't overdo it, though.
Okay, Mom, I promise I'll go straight to bed after the show finishes.
Ben now settles to watch his TV show. The TV show ends at 7 o'clock. A timer will display how long is left. What would you say to Ben at this point?
No, that's not fair. You said I could watch TV.
Ben was watching the TV show that he thought you had allowed him to watch. So, telling him that it is time for bed now, without sufficient warning, this has made him very upset. Next time, consider giving him some warning of your expectations concerning his bedtime. Would you like to play again?
So what did our testing show? As we finished completion of the AR prototype, COVID happened. And we had to pivot somewhat and move to a web-based version of the app, which remotely tested the AI elements. Now, our feedback showed that parents found the user guide and instructions clear and that they made sense. They liked the way that Ben interacted on Talking Sense and the immediate response he gave, which they felt was accurate and reflected real life. And they felt the scenario in Talking Sense was timely, given that routines at home had relaxed during COVID-19. And now with the imminent return to school, it was helpful in terms of getting their children prepared for school bedtime routines. One parent preferred typing as they felt uncomfortable talking to a laptop. They reflected that it was good to have had the choice of how to interact. Interestingly, one of the unanticipated benefits of Talking Sense is that parents found the app really useful for sharing and empowering grandparents, extended family, and babysitters on what to expect in a particular scenario, and that this was far more impactful than simply telling. They felt it was better to show and experience and therefore easier to understand. And also some parents deliberately played with Talking Sense to do it in the wrong way, to show grandparents and family what would happen in terms of Ben's response if their approach was not consistent and if they did not interact in a consistent way. So what are our next steps for Talking Sense? We've had some great suggestions from the parents themselves. One is to create an option to allow a parent to choose the gender of their child, as currently we only have Ben. Secondly, to create more scenarios which reflect the reality of day-to-day life and different behaviors. So we could include a supermarket scenario or doing homework. And to create choice for Ben to maybe not be as verbal as may often be the case for children with autism, and instead to give consideration to the use of sounds and picture cards, and extend Talking Sense to different groups of users, such as teacher training, and then to create a range of school and class-based scenarios. Now, interestingly, the British Medical Association has raised concerns about the time it takes for a diagnosis of autism, as well as specific issues with support offered. So Talking Sense could also be a useful resource for parents who are waiting for that multidisciplinary assessment for their child. Now, in Northern Ireland, the waiting is meant to take 18 weeks, but the reality is that it often takes between 18 months and 5 years. And during this time, there's little to no support for parents. So the second project that I want to talk about is Tsuru, which is the Japanese word for crane, and is an international symbol of peace. So Tsuru uses geospatial markers, depth mapping, and a new mobile AR tools to explore peace building in the digital and physical spaces of Belfast and Hiroshima. The outputs of Tsuru will be an AR experience using specially commissioned 360 film and spatial audio designed to reimagine contested public spaces in Belfast and Hiroshima. So we plan to record visual and audio data on site at the Peace Wall in Belfast and in Hiroshima. And the visual footage is then going to be led over Hiroshima, from Hiroshima over Belfast, and virtually removing the peace walls, and in its place adding images of trees that survived the bomb in Japan. So Tsuru is playing with the digital removal of peace walls in Belfast, using GIS data to reveal the other side. And the sound accompanying the visuals will incorporate voices of people around the peace walls in their everyday lives, music, poetry, and song, but with the addition of computer-generated sound. Now, the peace walls, also known as Belfast's Berlin Wall, range in length from a few hundred yards to over 3 miles. There are over 97 peace walls in Northern Ireland, and they were first built in 1969, just after the 30-year war started in 1968 and ended in 1998. Originally, they were only meant to stay up for 6 months. Now, Dr. Johnny Byrne from Ulster University has likened the peace walls to the Berlin Wall by saying, the Berlin Wall had to come down for Berlin to be normalized. We have normalized Belfast without taking down the walls. And this year marks the 75th anniversary of the dropping of the A-bomb on Hiroshima. And 1 year after the bomb was dropped, Hiroshima declared itself a city of peace, prosperity, and unity. There was no dispute about the past, and Hiroshima deliberately and consciously changed the narrative around peace building completely to celebrate unity. And buildings and areas that had survived are incorporated into the Hiroshima Memorial Park. Over 146,000 people died as a result of the bomb, and survivors Hiroshima are known as hibakushu. There are approximately 83,000 survivors in Hiroshima, and some were small children when the bombs were dropped, and others were young adults. The average age now of the survivors is 80 years. Interestingly, 170 trees survived the bomb and were found across the city now with clearly marked plaques to access photographs which show the trees before the bomb. And in Tsuru, we're going to virtually replace the peace wall with this symbol of survival, recovery, and unity. In Hiroshima, many of these trees that were affected by the A-bomb, they survived heat emitted by the explosion, which was 40 times greater than the heat of the sun. And the trees epitomize hope and peace in the aftermath of the bomb and rebuilding the razed city. In Belfast, we've built walls to manage our conflicts, create notions of safety, and redefined public spaces into something else. So Tsuru explores this polarized approach to peace building. And there are very specific questions that we want to explore. Can or should augmented reality be used to enhance peace building? What happens when we apply artistic inquiry to digitally manipulated and contested spaces? And do all boundaries and lines of division automatically transfer from the physical to the digital? And can digital change or open up contested spaces and reimagine what communities could look like without barriers? Who owns these new augmented and digital spaces? And what are the implications for international peace building? And do governments, citizens, communities, businesses, and society need to work together to regulate? So Tsuru assesses how physical and digital objects and information can coexist, interact, and complement each other through the layering of content and applications and technical infrastructure over real-world locations. And as AR has the power to reshape the way we remember history in public spaces, we believe that AR can democratize public spaces by capturing the collective memory of a place. So since there are no regulations specifying who owns the digital space, which is anchored in the real world, AR belongs to everyone. AR has many applications across a wide range of fields, one of which has to be social justice. And it has the power to add much needed context to public spaces. And it can reshape how society perceives and remembers history. So when spaces are designed to exclude certain voices and narratives, there is little anybody can do about it without some form of vandalism. But with AR technology in our grasp, everyone now has a new and powerful tool in the fight for social justice. And AR has the capacity to forge connections, nurture empathy, and promote healing through immersive experiences. So AR offers us a whole new capability in affecting existing reality. And here, Russian artist Vladimir Tomin uses experimental AR to manipulate existing physical realities in a fun way. And I would argue that Tomin is actually questioning the very concept of reality. So AR is turning the world we live in into a metaverse by creating endless and simultaneous and overlapping realities. However, AR does not just provide new worlds as the lines blur between the digital and physical. There's also a growing number of opportunities for AR to enrich our physical three-dimensional spaces. And the success of Pokemon Go was to normalize the idea of location-based digital content, where the game added a layer of digital information mapped to the real world. It created its own separate Earth while coexisting within the world around us. So the emotional connections that people make through immersive technologies such as AR and using sight, sound, and motion are undeniable. And as tech continues to evolve, experiences are moving away from just what people see to immersing them in the actual experience itself. And as AR blurs these lines of reality, it becomes even more compelling. So as everyday people become more receptive to AR experiences, there are challenging opportunities in trying to figure out appropriate use cases that only AR or AR does best to resolve. So what are the challenges that AR becomes the best solution for? And the immersive industry is still in its infancy, and there is a rush to create apps and experiences that simply show off the technical capability. And currently AR is dominated by marketing and advertising, which raises another challenge regarding immersive litter and how the digital space is regulated and kept clean. And for me, the really interesting questions are, is there a role for AR to redefine a digital space for positive action? And what role is there for AR where social justice rather than profit becomes its motivation? Thank you for listening.